Hello, I'm Tim Wall, Senior Reporter for Pet Food Industry. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Ask the Pet Food Pro, Unleashing Lifelong Wellness, Empowering Pets' Health, Vitality, and Longevity. As the Pet Food Pro connects industry professionals with leading experts, offering a direct line to ask questions and gain practical insights. Brought to you by Pet Food Forum and Pet Food Industries journalists and editors, explore our reporting and analysis at petfoodindustry.com and stay informed by subscribing to our daily newsletter and monthly magazine. Today's discussion focuses on supporting pets as they age. We'd like to thank Carrie for sponsoring this edition of Ask the Pet Food Pro. And we'd also like to thank our expert guest and welcome Dr. John Menton, a Senior Business Development Director for Pet with Carrie. Welcome, John, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Before we begin, I would like to mention a few little notes. All attendees, you have been muted. That is to ensure clear audio and to minimize distractions. We've incorporated many of the questions that you all submitted beforehand into today's discussion questions, but please do share any additional questions or comments in the chat at any time as we go along. Please note that this session, along with the chat, is being recorded, and registrants will receive access to the recording in approximately 1 week. All right. So, Dr. Menton, to set the stage, how do aging pets differ from what we see in younger animals, particularly when we're talking about metabolism and nutritional needs?
Yeah, well, I think what we see with pets is the age. I think we have to remember that pets have been adapted to live with people. So when we look at other animals, the pets tend to have longer lifespans because they get secure source of food, the veterinary care, shelter. Dogs have shorter lives than cats, and dogs have various lifespans due to the breeds, their sizes, their genetics. And because of the longer lifespans and closest to people, they start suffering from similar diseases that we see when we age as humans. So we see dogs and cats develop joint issues, arthritis, like we do as we get older. They put on weight as they get older. We see issues, immobility, stiffness, cognitive decline. They get diabetes, all the diseases that emerge in humans, and they get cancers as they age. And, it's the metabolism, it's hard to define, but metabolism changes in dogs. It's breed size. So it's really size dependent on when aging starts to appear. You'll see small breeds, they tend to live longer than larger breeds. And they would say they become senior at 9 to 11 in dogs. Cats be slightly different. We see cats maybe from 10 on would start to become senior just because their sizes are generally more uniform. In dogs, medium to large breeds, 7 to 9 years, they'll start developing these age-related illnesses. And you'll see like the giant breeds from 5 to 7. So it's hard to define ages because of the genetic variability among dogs in size and breeding. But the emergence of these ailments, of various ailments, can also lead to when you're saying they become senior. So when you start seeing joint stiffness, when you start seeing eye health, coat getting duller, it's an indication that the dogs or cats are starting to become senior and they're starting to develop the chronic conditions that we associate with humans at age and we'll see in pets. As I mentioned, how a lot of these are addressed is looking to nutrition, looking to supplements, and then in a lot of cases in prevention. But I suppose to answer your question, it's the same type of same reasons as people get old and we start seeing illnesses. It's the same in pets because we've created a nice lifestyle for them to probably live longer than they would in the wild if they weren't pets. And because of that, we see the chronic illnesses that we get, and that's why we're seeing the dehumanization of pets. We're associating the aging with what we see as we get older, and it's much closer and more familiar to us.
Right. Like so many other aspects of the pet industry, it's all coming down to humanization. And so speaking of something that you mentioned there, that it's very hard to define aging in senior pets, that amongst different species, different breeds amongst those. So there's no real clinical definition of a senior pet. So when pet food companies are defining life stages across different species and breeds, what are some indicators they can use? You mentioned like changes in hair color, things like that.
Yeah. You start really, I mean, mobility or joint health, that's the first, I suppose, sign that they've become senior in a lot of cases. And this is caused by cartilage breakdown and osteoarthritis, which, people get as well. Their joints start to slow down. That's a definition that you probably, that's a time you probably need to look at some type of interference in diet, in supplementation, maybe medication with the vet. That's happening. And I think the sooner that you start treating something like that, the longer you can maybe keep the pet from getting debilitating joint or mobility issues. Oral health is another key thing. When you start seeing decline in the teeth, particularly periodontal disease, plaque, really bad breaths, and the both in dogs and cats, that can start chronic inflammation. But you'll notice, they'll lose teeth. It can affect eating. It can affect how much calories they take in, and again, that's obviously going to lead to all sorts of issues, from losing weight, sarcopenia, muscle loss, and just generally not getting enough nutrients. Skin and coat, you'll see, the coat will start to thin. You'll get less, won't look as bright, as healthy. You might see them scratching more. You'll see inflammation appearing there. With cats, really, kidney disease is an issue that starts to appear in the older, and that's very, very hard. It's an issue with cats because they don't drink, they get enough drink, and really, when that starts to appear, that's a sign that they have hit senior age. Controlling phosphorus is a key thing there, and also the type of protein that they take. It's moderated because their kidneys are already under pressure, and make sure hydration is key. You will notice, they as well, the eye health. They'll start to, you might notice cataracts. You'll also, as with us, you'll notice graying with the pets. They will, start to go gray. But really, it's a whole host of things that you can associate with yourself, or with your relatives or parents. As you see them age similar, you will see it with pets. They start to develop very humanized type ailments.
All of us mammals are aging in the same ways.
Yes, exactly.
So you had mentioned a little bit earlier about some ways of like preventive care, or some ways that nutrition can address some of these challenges. So when people are starting to see these changes in their pets, they're aging, when should pet food companies be advising them to start looking towards nutritional interventions? How can preventive care start working alongside this nutrition to expand lifespan and the health span along with that? At what stage in life should that begin?
Yeah, but I think it you really break it down by the breakdown in various systems. So the immune system, oral health, joint health, skin and coat. I think there's various times when you can look to supplement, look to diets to interfere there. If we start with the immune system, the immune system changes as we all age, and with there's nutritional interventions that can help with immune resilience throughout life, as well as as they get into senior age. As we age, we see less effective immune responses. So our T cells or B cells, we don't have as much production or activity of them, and there's weaker responses to pathogens and vaccines. Immune health is also associated with chronic or low grade inflammation. So there's persistent low level inflammatory signals, which can be linked to arthritis, kidney disease, and cognitive health. The gut microbiome, there's disruption there in your immune system as you age. So, reduced microbial diversity, intestinal permeability, you get leaky guts. And a large part of the immune system is associated with your digestive system and gut. So it's a key part as well. You'll see decline in skin because it becomes thinner. Your gut lining weakens, so it's easier for pathogens to get into the body. And then from a nutritional strategy, there's things you can be giving to them throughout their life, or be giving to them as they get older. Some of the key nutrients that you'll see in diets for not just immune, but you'll see it for joint and skin. Omega 3 is very important because they have been shown to help with inflammation, improve immune signaling. The gut immune axis, as I said, was key. So probiotics, prebiotics, I think giving probiotics through life and prebiotics through life is very important to help build a healthy microbiome through life, and keeping it diverse, which helps with the immune system, helps with structure integrity of your gut. It's also key to support innate immune health, I think, and that we do call out and see beta glucans are very important, particularly beta glucans isolated from yeasts, for maintaining immune health, but also for innate immune health. And then it's key to getting certain vitamins like vitamin E, vitamin C throughout life, as well as zinc, high quality protein, B vitamins. All of these are key. I think for maintaining immune health, the biggest mistake is to wait till they're senior. It's all part of the right diets through life. But if they're going from adult to mature, you should look for making sure they're getting anti-inflammatory ingredients like I called out. Mature to senior gut and immune modulators can help, I think, to be proactive. And then you need to, as they get very old, you need to maybe work with the vet and work with the nutritionists, make sure that they're you've layered in condition specific supports like higher protein, that they're getting the right vitamins, they're getting food that can be broadly given to them that's not too high in calories, but you have to feed them over a day, that you can feed them at various times, so that you're not, depending on the dog and breed, that you're able to pivot with how you're giving them the nutrition. So I suppose takeaway on immune is their immune system gets reprogrammed as they get older, and really it's inflammation, gut health, preventing immune cell damage really can help. And I think it's supplementation throughout life, towards the end of life, and not being looking at the right nutrition in their diets can really help with immune.
And building on that, what are some specific science-backed ingredients that are really showing promise in the pet food formulations?
As I said, for immune health, if we break it by that, beta glucans, omega-3s, antioxidants, prebiotics, probiotics and prebiotics, and we're seeing now postbiotics. You could link postbiotics to beta glucans, but postbiotics are emerging, that can be similar to probiotics, that really help with gut health, but they can help with the immune system. Like 80% of your immune system is linked to gut health. So really that's a key thing to maintain. We're also seeing the emergence of stuff like colostrum and immunoglobulins, that's linking back to how the immune system comes in mammals from early milk. And we're seeing that could be given from various sources. We also see IgA starting to emerge. We're seeing the emergence of botanicals as well. So mushrooms, similar to what you see in humans, curcumin or turmeric extracts. And then, immune cofactors like nutrients, selenium, zinc, vitamin A, they appear in diets. So it's really looking to boost and also to balance, to ensure that if we speak about immune health, that these ingredients are all being given at certain times or throughout life. And, proactive nutrition, as a healthy dog, there's some of these ingredients can be given healthy, but you should definitely be looking to give them as they get into early senior or into and beyond. The other areas we see, joint health and mobility support, is another one I talked about, immune health. But for joint health, it's really, osteoarthritis appears over time, and this is caused by cartilage breakdown and inflammation, very similar to what we see in humans. Chronic inflammation can lead to joint health. Key one we're seeing emerging, and I think it's going to be similar to humans, it's a factor, is excess weight in pets. I think we heard at a couple of conferences over the last year, 60% of pets are obese, and that puts a lot of pressure on their joints. It puts pressure on their hips, their knees, just because they're carrying those extra pounds. But it can affect how active they are from their younger part of their life through, and that builds into muscle loss earlier, or the prevention of actual muscle development. And muscle loss, sarcopenia, is very hard to reverse once it happens, and that's really activity, the right nutrients, high protein to help prevent that as they get older. Again, look for muscle and joints. The strongest evidence we've seen for ingredients to be put in, and it's not a cure, but omega-3s are from fish oil. They really have been shown in pets to have an effect for joint health. They can be given, as a young adult, but if the pets are obese or heavy, you have to be careful on giving them too much because it is it does have a lot of calories in it. But as they get older, omegas can help with joint and help to reduce pain. And you see a lot of evidence on that, and especially showing that's linked with helping alongside something like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. You also see moderate evidence in joints and muscle health for similar to humanization, glucosamine, chondroitin. You see, people take that. There is some moderate evidence that it can help for joint health in pets, for muscle, similar to what we see as taking it as supplements. Green lipped mussel has emerged, and this is ingredient you'll see a lot. You see it on the human side, you do see it on the pet side as being very popular for joint health because it contains omega-3s and glycose aminoglycans, and that's the call out. There has been studies showing some benefits. There's been studies showing it doesn't benefit, but that's another ingredient that has emerged, which can be given for joint and muscle health. As well, you're starting to see stuff like avocado, soybean. Similar, again, it's humanization. We're seeing ingredients appear that we've seen on the human side that can help with maybe cartilage degradation and inflammation, or reducing inflammation in these joints as well to help them be more mobile. And then look, there's emerging ingredients which have yet to have a lot of clinicals for joint health, same as in humans, like hyaluronic acids, sulfone, methane, which MSM we see in a lot of human supplements, eggshell membrane. So these are appearing really for joint. The other thing which we have seen some products emerge for joints and muscle has been some probiotics, postbiotic ingredients, which can help with anti-inflammatory. If you think of anti-inflammatory across the body and affecting the immune system, anti-inflammatory, there are some products emerging there. There still is a lot of science to come out about them, I would say, but there's also ones which can be given that can help with muscle maintenance and muscle building, because of if we've seen some studies where taking these microorganisms or postbiotics, it can help with muscle maintenance and muscle gain.
Interesting. Is that something you usually hear of is used for probiotics?
Yeah, we're seeing it emerge. We're seeing postbiotics, probiotics for skin, for joint health, for muscles, for mental health, for stress, all linking into the gut brain axis. Central nervous system is linked to so many parts of the body, and the microbiome is really connected to all that, and how you influence it can really affect inflammation, and broad inflammation or overall inflammation in the body.
And it looks like we actually have a follow-up question on something you had mentioned earlier. Are there any studies showing a difference between green-lipped mussel and black-lipped mussel?
As far as I'm aware, really, green-lipped mussel has been associated because it does have the omegas that have been associated with joint health, and it's linking really into those studies that are there. I'm not familiar with one on black-lipped versus green-lipped, but that's, from my understanding, is green-lipped is the one of choice for joint health, but open to correction if there's new evidence on that.
Gotcha. And another one about collagen hydrolysate. Asking about that is for joint mobility.
Yeah, look, we've seen that both in human and in pets. I think the thought is it's more soluble, easier to get into diets. It's really back to when joints are breaking down or cartilage is broken down, it's generally too late. So if you're giving collagen, it's something you probably want to be giving adults when they're healthy to hopefully maintain those joints. And with hydrolysates as well, if you hydrolyze something, you're really just making it potentially more digestible, easier to put in application. But it's like with human, it's still, there's not a huge amount of evidence that taking it helps, but people do take it, and and associated as helping. And I think it's the same in pet. People do give them to pets and associate, that there might be improvements.
Gotcha. And likewise, asking about chondroitin.
Yeah, same. Associated with cartilage, helping with cartilage. As I said, once cartilage is gone, it's not really replaceable. So it's really something that should be given, hopefully to help prevent. And that's really where I think we're going with the humanization of pets. It's looking at prevention, supplementing earlier, the right diets earlier, based on what we're seeing, with us trying to live longer as humans, cannot be brought into pets because we've created companions that we want to live longer alongside us, and they're probably living unnaturally longer, and we want to extend that. Supplementation throughout life is something that would potentially help. But I do think the clinicals, there's a lot of clinicals that need to be done, so that while we are giving them, potentially we're not wasting money on products that's not having a clinical effect.
Gotcha. Yeah. So speaking of some of the signs of aging that you had mentioned before, you had mentioned oral health as being a very important sign, dogs and cats losing their teeth, things like that. So let's explore that a little bit. How can dental health influence the overall systemic health in senior pets? We've all heard about the connection between dental health and heart health and gut health and things like that.
Yeah, when you think about it, growing up, I had lots of dogs and cats. I'm sure everyone is saying, but I don't ever remember my parents brushing their teeth. You think if we didn't brush our teeth throughout our lives, most people are educated early to brush their teeth and maintain good oral health, because it's key part to, if you have bad dental health, about it, you get a lot of pain. Your pet, your dog, your cat, if you're not maintaining their oral health, helping them clean their teeth, you're creating a problem. 5 years, 4 years, you will start to notice bad breath. They will develop tartar, plaque. Their teeth will brown. Their gums will start showing evidence of redness and inflammation, and they will get periodontal disease. And that's the main culprit, really, with when you get to association of really bad issues, because once you have periodontal disease, bacteria is getting into your gum line. It's getting into the roots of your teeth. You get bacterial pockets in your jaw, and the gum to the brain, blood flow there, it's very easy for bacteria to start getting into the bloodstream. And that's what, when those bacteria get into the bloodstream, that can start leading to heart issues, endocarditis, liver, kidney stress. Or general, except it can kill the pet. But also, having all that bacteria in the mouth, that inflammation, it causes overall inflammation in the body, which is not good. And it could, or there's association with bad oral health amplifying joint inflammation and compounding that. It has effects on liver and kidneys. The pain, you may imagine you've a mouthful of rotting teeth. It'd be very painful for the pets, and you will notice reduced appetites, less chewing. They might become more aggressive because they are in pain. And it has an impact on longevity. And really, the key thing for it is prevention. Brushing, it's hard to brush pets' teeth. I know they don't like it, some of them. Brushing a cat, I know people brush their cat's teeth as well. I don't have a cat, but I hear that's quite a chore to do it. But you have to try and somehow maintain it, because it is going to affect their lifespan. There's no doubt about it.
So other than actually going in there and brushing the cat's or dog's teeth yourself, what kind of ingredients or formulation approaches are pet food companies using to address that dental health challenge?
Yeah, well, you see, looking at the kibbles they have, you can look at the structure of the kibbles so that they're harder to chew, so they can have a kind of a brushing effect, or knock off bits of food in it, and have a cleaning. You also see it in the dental sticks, oral powder for oral health, which can be given. These can help the mechanical action. So sticks, treats, or harder kibble, they can help reduce plaque, scrape the plaque off it. There are anti-tartar agents which are around, like polyphosphates. These can be given to in various pastes or as part of chews to help reduce plaque and biofilm. There's antimicrobial ingredients, so enzymatic systems, enzymes like oxidases, lactoperoxidase, similar to what you see in some of the human kind of organic mouthwashes are around, which can help remove biofilm. And biofilm is a key call out because that's really the bacteria building up in the mouth. Once they start making biofilm, that turns into tartar and plaque. But that biofilm then is how it gets into the gums. There's other emerging ingredients we're seeing, like seaweed-derived ingredients, which can help saliva composition and plaque adherence. And what's one that I find very interesting emerging are probiotics for oral health, because we talk a lot about the microbiome in the gut, but there is a microbiome in the mouth. Your mouth is full of bacteria, good bacteria and bad bacteria, and maintaining that microbiome is key as well. A healthy microbiome, healthy gums. You also are seeing the emergence again of postbiotics, probiotics for the microbiome maintenance in the mouth. Some of the probiotics really are you're helping to just push the community of microbiome in the mouth in the right way, so less of the ones that cause illness, or cause tooth decay or plaque or tartar building up. But also we're seeing the emergence of probiotics, postbiotics, which actually have anti-biofilm properties. They are able to break down the biofilm, attack quorum sensing in the mouth, which quorum sensing is how bacteria, certain species of bacteria, like staph for is an example of a quorum sensing bacteria, Staph aureus. They signal to each other to form a biofilm to help them survive in environments that are stressful to the bacteria. So a lot of the bacteria that cause periodontal disease are biofilm forming. So if you can affect that quorum sensing, affect that buildup in a probiotic or a postbiotic as part of a treat or a chew, that could help prevent, other than brushing, the buildup of some of these bacteria. There's a lot of stuff emerging. There is a lot of also alternatives, like, as I said, enzymes which can be added to the water where they're taking it, or other ingredients. And I think postbiotics, probiotics are going to be a very interesting technology to come along. And we are seeing that in the human side as well. The importance of the oral microbiome in humans. It's back to it. I think it will link back to pets because it's potentially another solution that can be easily given to them to help with this problem.
Yeah, your answer there pretty much answered a question that we had from the audience from Jess about supplements and things like that. So thanks for that. So moving on, as we go from the inside of the pets to the outside, this actually ties into a question we had at the very beginning. It was asking about how let me scroll up here, asking about you mentioned that dogs may start scratching more during senior years and showing some skin issues. So let's follow up on that and get back to that and answer this question from the audience. So as pets are aging, what are some of the skin barrier functions and coat quality issues that they may experience?
Well, their skin barrier is the same as ours. I mean, it's the skin is the biggest organ in our body. It's the same in pets. Skin, it prevents water loss. It blocks bacteria from entering, allergens, irritants. There is a microbiome on your skin as well, and that's that can get affected as they get older. The skin can thin out. You'll see visible coat changes, and that thinning leads to increased risk. Aging skin, it produces fewer ceramides, fatty acids, sebums, and really, because of reduced lipid production, and that leads to dry and flaky skin, a duller coat, more water loss. The thinning of the skin also makes it more fragile because of reduced collagen. It's slower to heal, and they're more prone to irritation and injury. So that's why you'll see more scratching as the skin dries. Their flakiness, the scratching, but they are more prone then to rashes, inflammation, which can be very uncomfortable for the pets, particularly when you think they have a heavy coat of hair on top of it in warm weather. It gets very uncomfortable. And I know, for example, my sister, for example, had a dog that was got an allergy to grass, and she ended up the dog had to was in serious pain with skin issue, scratching its ears to the point of they had to bleed. And unfortunately, it was more cruel to keep it alive than to have to put it down, because there was nothing the vets could do.
Wow.
So the dog was pretty young age, but it can be quality of life, really affect the quality of life of them. And the immune defense is down, so they're going to get more infections. And this, by the skin effect, you think the coat and furs on top of it, so this will affect the follicles. That you'll see the thinner coat. Sometimes they get patchiness, and it's dependent on the breed. Some breeds will get bare. You get bare skin. They get redness, brittle. Look, you'll see them, and they can't look. It can create a lot of pain. We've all been, I think, most have exposed to something that gave us an allergy or a rash in our life, and it's very, very uncomfortable. So that's an important thing as they age, to try and make them have a more comfortable life. And we do see it, both dogs and cats.
Yeah, and what are some nutritional strategies to address that? What are some of the key ingredients that can help address that?
Yeah, well, I hate to sound like a broken record, but there is a lot on fish oil. Um, there's a fish oil is, when given to dogs, it can really help with the oil and maintaining that lipids, the sebum, maintaining that barrier structure. Fish oil that's EPA, DHA rich. It has an anti-inflammatory effect. You hear about omega-6 linoleic acid, very key, and you'll find that that's in a lot of diets. But as they move to a later stage in life, having diets that becomes higher in, I think will help with skin health, because and you will see notice you notice a difference in the coats. The structure of hair is affected by protein as well. So richer protein, there's certain amino acids for hair structure. Collagen can help potentially with skin integrity, but also with hair structure. So that's bringing methionine, cysteine to the coats can really help with strengthening that and stopping increased shedding and lower healing. You'll hear about vitamins, same as in humans: vitamin E, vitamin C, um, polyphenols. They're starting to emerge, potential polyphenols, where they can help regulate inflammation. And it's back to immune health as well. I mean, zinc, biotin, which we see again, we're seeing a lot of the products we see on the human side, but they can help with these issues by looking to add them in diet or supplementation. A key one, which is probably is hydration, particularly in cats. Hydration will lead to skin, if they're not getting enough water, they'll get skin dryness. And you'll see it also certain times of the year, as it gets, if your cat or dog is indoors a lot, if your house doesn't have a humidifier, they're going to get dry skin just like us. Same thing happens to them. You'll notice the flaky of the skin, same as we do, as the seasons change. If you look at it based on evidence, really omegas, high quality protein, linoleic acid have been shown to be the most impactful. Vitamins, zinc, biotin, vitamin E, and then there's emerging ones. And I do call out, we are seeing postbiotics, probiotics for skin health emerging. And again, it's back to their effect on the systemic inflammation, because systemic inflammation is all part of, can lead to inflammation, which appears in other parts of the body, like in your gut, in your skin, and that could appear as rashes
Gotcha.
and
So
itchiness.
one thing I noticed is that you mentioned a lot of those ingredients, throughout several different body areas. And so let's kind of zoom back out and look at, the ingredient market as a whole, and start looking at, what kind of innovations are you seeing in pet food ingredient science, in general, looking at the aging pet as a whole?
Yeah, I think I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we are seeing a lot of stuff emerging on both on the biotic side, pre, pro, postbiotics for this, linking back to gut health. we're starting to see the emergence of some, people looking at polyphenols and botanicals from plants that, that are coming, and really they're being associated in the human side, but they have, they can have good antimicrobial effects. We are seeing for joint health, the bringing in of ingredients we see in the human side, which I've mentioned. I think what's interesting to see is the different ways of giving the foods or giving the supplements with freeze dried kibbles. It's interesting that they're emerging freeze dried toppers, which allow you to give ingredients which mightn't have been in kibbles because of the heat and pressure associated with kibbles, or mightn't survived in canning. So we're seeing a lot of stuff there that's emerging in ways to also give supplements to them. But I think what I've seen that's most interesting really is on the biotic side, the emergence of those technologies, because it's targeting more of the system, the body, which kind of then affect the outer systems like the skin, the cognitive, basically overall information, even into joint and to muscle health. And we're seeing also, I think, the emergence of different protein, higher protein, potentially products that can be given at later stages in life to help really make sure, like with humans, when people get older, they're told to take more protein, even in drinks. We're starting to see that emerge with higher protein diets in the pets. What also I think will emerge is looking at more specific diets. So there's people are getting their pets DNA checked to look for specific nutritional issues that they might have and acting there. So I think I saw in some marketing in France, 60% of people were willing to actually get their DNA of their pet, genetically analyzed for that. So I don't know, will we get to a point where that will be, very specific diets individualized for pets, depending on the pet parent and how much, how far they're willing to go. That's something that's starting to, I think, emerge as well. So we're really seeing the trends and longevity we see in humans. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing wearable technologies coming into pets at some point as well. Looking at their activity, looking at maybe various things that we look at in ourselves to monitor our health. So we really are seeing the humanization is where pets were, where humans were, 5 years ago, is probably will start to emerge in pets over the next few years.
Yeah, we actually had a question about that, asking, what biomarkers or physiological indicators are most predictive of longevity in dogs, and are these measurable through wearable data? So that's something our audience is wondering about. Is like the application of basically like Fitbits for pets kind of thing.
Yeah, wouldn't know exactly which specific ones you would look at, but I can see that starting to emerge at some point in the future. In both dogs and cats, it's it would link into what's happening overall in the human space. So I think we'll continue to see those trends coming.
Right, wearable tech and genotype specific formulations.
Yeah. It's you could take saliva samples from your dog now and get them sequenced. It's all there. So
his dog's been genotyped.
Yeah.
Good deal. So we've got a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So let's go ahead and jump on over there. I've been trying to work some of these in, but I know there's a lot of these that we have not even touched on. So after touching on the future of aging pets, let's see here. We've got one asking about, let's see, we haven't touched on about protein, 2 schools of thought. Lower or higher for senior animals? You had mentioned protein a little bit before. Any more thoughts on protein for senior pets?
Yeah, from what I've seen and read, I mean, it depends on the ailments they're suffering from too. But I think it's good that throughout that they're getting good quality, high protein when they're healthy adults. That'll help them build and maintain muscle like throughout life, based on activity. I think based on the ailments they get as they get older, like if they start to show issues like kidney, you don't want to give them very, very high protein. So it's it's hard to say yes, give high protein when they're senior or becoming geriatric, because it can depend on the individual pet. But it is important probably as to get into a senior and if they're still healthy, to be giving them higher protein to help with that muscle maintenance would be my opinion on it. But obviously it depends on the ailments that they might have, which a high protein might be good for.
Gotcha. And so when we're considering in some of the different formats that are becoming popular, like frozen fresh versus kibble, things like that, how does nutrient bioavailability differ between frozen fresh and kibble formats for key longevity ingredients such as omega-3s or antioxidants?
Yeah, I think there's omegas. It's you can really only get in, maybe 2% omegas into hard kibbles, because they'll get too moist. So you probably could get more into freeze dried, or into tin food in terms of omegas. That's just based on the ingredients itself. If you're looking at having more at ingredients like probiotics, which can be less viable in kibble, freeze dry is actually a better way to give them, because they survive much better. That'd be an example there. You probably get better stability of stuff like vitamins in freeze dried, I would say, as well, than in kibble. You'll still get it in kibble, but you might have more loss as you add the ingredients due to the heat and pressure that they are put under.
Gotcha. So about another ingredient, this one's about a postbiotic. I'm interested in the use of postbiotics containing polyhydroxybutirates. Is there any value in pet gut microbiome?
Yeah, we hear a lot about the importance of butyrates in microbiome overall. It's very hard to deliver butyrates to anyone because of the smell and the taste that they can bring. So if there's a lot of talk, you see, we're starting to see that in animal health more so, where butyrates are associated pigs, livestock for better. They're associated with better gut health and better gains there. Butyrates, yeah, they can affect the microbiome positively in a lot of cases, and probiotics with them can. I think the challenge is when giving it that that smell of butyrate and taste of butyrate doesn't come true, because I've seen that on the human side. High butyric producing probiotics are very unpleasant to put in, even into a supplement capsule, that you have to flavor over them, and I think pets would be pretty sensitive to that.
Yeah, there was a question earlier about just in general, aging pets. Aging animals seem to have a loss of olfaction that may result in reduced feed intake and interest. Is this tied to olfaction or more sort of palatability? Is there anything that can be done to increase the olfaction to ensure that nutrients are received? So addressing
Yeah,
those.
I mean, I'm afraid I'm not a palatability expert
Sure.
on that, and I wouldn't answer it because I'm definitely not a palatability expert. I assume like it's the same as we get older. Humans lose the ability from a taste perspective. For We lose some sensitivities for salt, for spice. I'm sure as pets get older, they're probably suffering the same thing. So there might need to be some increases in the palatant used, or changes to the palatant to maybe make it more attractive to them, or make it taste the same as it did when they were younger. But I'm not a palatability expert on how you would change that. I'd advise to check with one of the palatant companies there.
Gotcha. And we had another question about single-celled protein. Any comments on their use?
We see it. I mean, we're seeing it emerge again. It's the expense that it can really come with that. It's definitely more sustainable, but it gets to a point with pet foods is how much you can tolerate from a cost to make it sustainable or not. Definitely could be used, but I don't know about the cost, and whether consumers are educated enough to know that they're paying more, and why they're paying more to use those types of protein in the products, or give them to their pet. It's protein is protein; they'll get the same nutrients, but it's more of a sustainability play there.
When it comes to getting those amino acids. So how
Yeah,
about collagen? Jess sounds a little skeptical. So would you say collagen is more of a trend than science backed right now in terms of pets?
I mean, it's it's a trend. It's a trend in it's been a trend for years in both human and pets. I mean, I don't know. We've seen a huge amount of science that collagen does a lot, with the exception maybe of when it's given into skin directly. People see that, but taking it as part of your diet and that you digest it and it has an effect. I think it has more science probably as a topical ingredient than as something you digest and travels to your body to have an effect.
Gotcha. And another one about ingredients. Is there any science or evidence of hemp oil being beneficial in aging pets, aging dogs?
I you see some of it emerging in the market. I haven't really looked at it. It's not something I've looked at. I'm sure there's been some studies done on it. Hemp is associated. People do take it for joint health. I'm sure, yeah, it potentially could cross over to pet. I think it's, for me, with hemp is the challenge would be how to give it to the pet, because it does have quite a strong taste and smell. So I would say it would have to be given a supplement, and it'd have to have some pretty heavy palatants or maskers in it for them to take it.
Gotcha.
If it could be used as a topical, but is potentially on them, but I don't know how effective it would be. Basically, you're not giving it to bare skin.
Gotcha. So we had a follow-up when you had been answering the question about how does nutrient bioavailability differ between frozen, fresh, and kibble for some of the key nutrients. And they were wondering about specifically fresh and frozen versus freeze-dried.
Yeah, I mean, fresh and frozen, if you add the ingredients, I mean, it's they are going to be very bioavailable and stable. It depends obviously on the quality that are added, because look, you're looking at potentially HPP treated products, so it's pretty gentle on ingredients, bioavailable ingredients that are sensitive. So it would be, yeah, it's a good way to put nutrients in or get nutrients into the pet. I think fresh and frozen is obviously is emerging very, very as a popular category, and again, it's the expense as well for pet parents on that product. It's much more expensive to give fresh and frozen than kibble or traditional pet foods.
Gotcha. So you had mentioned earlier genotyping and having your pet's DNA sequenced. Have factors identified in pets associated with health and aging been identified in their genes that those genotyping programs could identify?
I haven't personally done it, but there are companies out there that are sequencing pet DNA and giving potential reports there, same as with humans. So I don't know exactly which ones they're calling out in terms of markers or genotypes, but I do know those services are becoming available, and small startup companies are doing it.
Gotcha. And so earlier you had mentioned essentially protein is protein as long as the amino acids are there, they're there. And so we have a question about what is the current evidence on protein source variation and its effect on metabolic health over time?
Yeah, you see, but certain proteins, certain amino acids have been shown to be important for maintenance of muscle and for anabolic health. So you will see, off the top of my head, I can't remember those amino acids, but there is a link with proteins, sources which have certain amino acids. I think tyrosine is one that comes to mind, which when you look at certain protein sources, those being there can have an effect on stuff like muscle maintenance, sarcopenia. So it's which sources exactly I can't remember, but that is something that has been linked in terms of looking at the amino acids structure and how much amino acids are available.
Gotcha. So another one, I think this will probably be our last one, so we're running out of time. Have any benefits been discovered from insect products on aging pets?
Not something I'm aware of, to be honest. We see insects. Protein is coming. It's got a great sustainability story. Not something I've looked at myself, so I wouldn't give an answer to that. I haven't looked at it, but I'm sure there's data on it, or some good marketing data on it out there from the suppliers.
All right. So, all right, we've answered all the questions we have from our audience, and we are approaching the top of the hour. So, those were some great questions, and I thank all of you for sending those in. Did you have any final comments, John? Anything to mention?
I think my only final comments would be with all these ingredients, really, as the ones I've mentioned, it's really clinicals for me are the most important. And as these ingredients emerged, for pet food people who produce pet food, for supplements producers, it's to look to the clinicals and make sure that there's good clinical designs have been done on them when you add them to the food, so that you can stand behind your claims when you're looking to add these ingredients to senior diets. And I think it's also good to link with veterinarians. And what we try and do at at my company is link with experts, with vets, with academics when we design our studies, that they are having the best. When you look at the clinical outcome, you are looking for the best markers of that. And I think that's for me to call out. When you use these ingredients, make sure they're clinically backed, or that your suppliers can point out they're clinically backed, so that what you're putting in and that you're asking consumers to pay for will bring a known benefit.
Gotcha. Find the evidence. All
Yes.
right. Good deal. Well, thanks again, John. And thank you to our audience for joining us. And I'd also like to give a great big thank you to Carrie for sponsoring this edition of Ask the Pet Food Pro. Please watch more Ask the Pet Food Pro chats brought to you by Pet Food Industry and Pet Food Forum. I'm Tim Wall, a senior reporter for Pet Food Industry. And I'd like to say thanks again to Carrie and to Dr. John Menton, Senior Business Development Director for Pet, also with Carrie. And a big thank you to the Watt Global Media staff for making this possible. Thank you to our international audience for joining us. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day or evening, depending on whichever hemisphere is your home. Until next time on Ask the Pet Food Pro, goodbye.